Now let's track how PAM works using the system config security level command. Yeah, it's a binary file in the user/bin directory, so for simplicity, you'll just have to trust me when I say that it refers to the associated file in the etc/pam.d directory for authentication. In this case, that file is etc/pam.d/system config security level. It's a real simple looking file. It includes 3 directives, or 3 modules, and the modules we discussed in more detail in another video. The modules are straightforward. For example, the auth module includes auth directives from another file named config-util. The account directive includes account modules from that same file. And the session directive includes session directives from that same file. So let's look at that config-util file. We have auth, account, and session directives, so all these directives are included. First, the auth directive. The sufficient option means that if the condition is met, access is allowed. The rest of the file is ignored, and that makes sense. The PAM root-ok.so directive means that if it's the root user who ran the system config security level command, access is automatically allowed, and that's what you want for the root user. The next auth directive checks the timestamp of the last authentication. In other words, the last time the root password was given for this command. As I suggested in another video, as long as it's within 5 minutes, the sufficient directive means that access is allowed and the rest of the file is ignored. The third auth directive is another include directive. In other words, we have to look at the auth directives from the system auth file. Okay, let's take a look at these directives. There are 4 directives in that system auth file. The first directive sets an environment variable associated with typing in that root password. The next directive takes the root password from what's typed into the text box. The following directive checks to see if it's a regular user with a user ID of greater than or equal to 500. Yeah, that's a greater than sign, but what it really means is greater than or equal to. Any user with lower user IDs is generally a system user. And if a system user is trying to get into an administrative account, that's characteristic of an attempt to crack your system. And the last auth directive in system auth means if none of the other conditions are met, access is considered to have failed and failure is returned, and the user who tried to get to system config security level is denied access. Okay, now back to the config-util file. The account directive, as it is required, authorizes access if the account is legitimate. The first session directive, as it is required, sets up a session for logging and password purposes. The next 2 directives are optional, so they don't determine success or failure of access, but they do set up a timestamp as well as GUI authentication. The timestamp means the user doesn't have to enter the root password if he runs that system config security level command again in the next 5 minutes. That's the analysis of one PAM configuration file.